Here at Bodo, hands are reaching across the centuries to tell a story. For hundreds of years, First Nations people lived here. Their hands crafted tools that helped them hunt the buffalo. Their hands shaped pottery that they used in their everyday lives. Now, new hands are at work here. Hands that carefully excavate the earth and brush the soil away from the secrets beneath. Hands that cradle items last touched by the people who lived here so long ago. When we piece those artifacts together, they gradually reveal the hidden story of Bodo.
The story seems to be one of, at optimum times through history, the Bodo archaeological locality was really a nice place to live. And then something happened, and then it wasn't amenable to people actually living there, at least to the extent that we'd actually find their cultural remains.
What we're doing is we're going through this top dark layer because it contains artifacts that are associated with the most recent occupation that we come across at Bodo, and that is about 300 years old, and it's very dense, usually with bone and stone tools and pottery and other artifacts. So we're going slowly through those, and based on the test pits which we did in this area, we're not expecting much between the two dark layers. But what the students are doing here is we are going quickly through this layer so that we can get down to this buried soil, which represents an old land surface as well. And why is that exciting in archaeology? Because people like to live where plants are growing and there's animals around, there's resources basically. So we are finding artifacts in that dark layer. It also can contain some information about the plants and animals like seeds and other evidence that we might find about the types of plants that are growing there and the types of animals that are growing there, so that we can help reconstruct some of the environmental information where people were living in.
300 years ago, the whole place was an oasis that seemed to draw people, and perhaps in the winter, 300 years ago, maybe this became a really good wintering ground. Instead of going to sheltered valleys where you could find wood and stay out of the wind, you could actually go to this Bodo locality because there was wood there to burn. There's deadfall that you could burn all winter, and if you happen to have a good bison kill in there, just stay there rather than take off.
Okay, this is where we start.
I'm glad I'm not doing it. Been lucky so far. Doesn't feel like there's any roots down there. Where you are, it's pretty good.
5,000 years ago, it might have been another huge oasis that brought them there. But then it was destroyed or disturbed or otherwise made uninhabitable.
Is it bone?
Yeah. Pretty dirty, but it's bone.
Okay.
Oh, it's up in the upper level. Let's see what's next.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
The current oil field development on Bodo is, it's kind of a mixed blessing, and it's the reason we actually found the site, and in many regards it's the reason we know an awful lot about the extent of the site. It's simply by oil field exploration. Much of the oil field development was very carefully controlled, and it's been controlled to stay on areas that had already been disturbed. I spend a lot of time trying to find areas of the site where there is no actual archaeological deposit, and then provide that legal right-of-way where they can go in and actually put their line.
Another piece of bone here.
These are all getting into identifiable.
And it is 76.
This is a pile of discarded bones that would have been associated with a kill of the bison that would have happened nearby, and then all of the bones would have been butchered and smashed up and just thrown here. Well, here we see a fragment of a bison jaw with all of the teeth in place, and this is a fragment of a skull part of the bison. And this is what we call a fire-broken rock, a rock that has been next to a fire and has been heated and cracked in half because of the heat. And over here we have some fragments of pottery, and you can see that some of them are very decorated.
Oh yeah. Okay.
They're quick and then we'll go down.
Yeah,
We
go on
find
down.
50 or 60 arrow points in this one pile in a 2 by 2 meter unit. That's unprecedented on the Northern Plains to actually find so many arrow points that they just basically abandoned because they were mixed in with probably just the viscera and the debris and just the guts basically.
What's important about this is that the surrounding soil is all loam and silt, and there's no large rocks in it. It's very well sorted. And so when you find something like this, it's pretty strange, and you have to look into it a bit more. And then furthermore, it looks like fire-cracked rock, which is something that you find around hearth areas, and it's seated in a bed of charcoal, which also indicates a hearth area. And then in the adjacent unit to the south, there's a potential hearth. So altogether, the assemblage kind of points towards a cooking pit.
We record very, very detailed information on every artifact, as general as what site it was from and the location within the site, to very specific 3D information so you can exactly pinpoint where that artifact was found. So that someone in 10 or 15 or 30 years can come back with more sophisticated scientific technologies, and they can go back, they can find the exact artifacts, they know exactly where they were found, and they can do more detailed studies so that we can learn more and more about them.
Right now I'm checking the bones we find in the field with our reference collection here. And it looks like we have a match of the right and left humerus of the bison.
It's actually a ground whereby you can actually do a lot of experimental archaeology and a lot of testing of existing theories that are in circulation in publications about archaeological discoveries throughout, say, the Northern Plains.
Found a piece of bone. Don't know how deep it goes yet, though.
Everything is important that you recover from an archaeological site, and it doesn't matter what size it is. It can be a very large rock or piece of bone, and it can go down to be something smaller than your fingernail. And those very, very small pieces tell a story as well. For instance, you can get very small pieces of stone bits, and we call them stone flakes, and they reflect the fact that someone has sat down and sharpened a stone tool. And so you know that there was a larger tool somewhere in the picture, but all that you have left is the very, very tiny fragments of stone. And when you study those fragments, you can actually learn what kind of stone tool material it was, and then we can learn more about where was the stone from. Was it available locally, or was it actually have to be traded in? And so then we actually learn more about the culture itself, and did they have contact with other groups? So even a very small, tiny piece of stone will actually tell a much bigger story.
This rock's special because we found it 40 centimeters in the ground, and it's sharp, has sharp edges. Usually that doesn't happen with glacial rock, it'll be rounded off. Usually the sharp edges signifies that it's been worked by human agent of some sort. This particular rock is most likely what they call shatter or debitage. For bone, you usually dry brush bone, or you can get it a little bit wet if you need to. Bone takes a really long time to dry, so if you submerge it in water, it'll soak up all the water, and then you won't be able to catalog it for 3 or 4 days afterwards. Most rock you can just put in here and submerge it in the bucket and wash it as much as you want. Pottery, you can't wash it all. You have to only dry brush pottery.
Literally, some sites will have thousands and thousands of artifacts, and people have to still wash all of that material. And sometimes you take soil samples back to the lab, and you have to sift through them through very fine screens, and use a microscope and poke through all that soil with little tweezers, trying to find little small artifacts or insects or little tiny bits of stone and bone that will help you learn more about the site.
Well, these ones have been utilized. You can see where the edge of the stone, which we call the cortex, is still intact on one side. On this side, there's been pieces of lithic removed, probably also used as tools, and so that's really unique. And then furthermore, on this end right here, it's a little bit bumpy and distressed. Someone's been smashing a bone or another piece of rock or something with it to crush it up. So you can tell that people have been using this as a tool.
For me, archaeology is always a sense of adventure and discovery. You never know what you're going to find from day to day. Whether you're out in the field and you're just surveying, looking for sites, or you're doing an actual excavation, at each trowel dig, you never know what's going to come up next. As well in the lab, when you're studying artifacts and you're washing them or you're looking at them underneath a microscope, all of a sudden you find something brand new that no one else has seen for a long time. You know that someone else held that in their hand and they very carefully shaped it. And you like to think, you know, what was it like to live back then? You always wonder how it was. And that's always an interesting and fascinating thing to try to learn about.
We have an abundant resource. It's well preserved. It's pretty well protected, and it's, you know, it's here in perpetuity. And this is like a unique area. It's like a research park, and archaeologists can come up with some ideas, and they say, I want to test these ideas. Where do I find a site to do this? You come to Bodo.